great to see you again.
Yeah,
Really nice. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. And how are things going for you?
Well, two things. The one that we were talking about last time, that one still has not changed, which is great. So the know me truly,
Yes.
I feel a bit of a deepening of it. So yes, it's
Good.
somehow sometimes you say certain things and then only a couple of weeks later they really happen.
Yes.
For example, living from neutrality, that sounded nice.
Mm.
But now I feel like this is really sort of landing. It's kind of happening. So
Good.
not too exciting, not too, there's no high or low too much.
Yes.
It's really living from neutrality. There, I can't report on any self-inflicted problems the last few months.
Good.
That's quite amazing.
That's
That's
great.
really incredible.
Good.
Seeing a couple of thoughts coming up and then, winding down again.
Yes.
That is also nice. It's really great to see. The number of thoughts that I wrote down back then, remember when I made the book, or the notes, let's say from effortless being, and the other one, which was noting the invitations. And there are like 4 or 5, I would say, the good old ones, and there haven't been any real new ones. That's
Good.
at least not in the mental,
Yes.
not from the thinking level. Something I wanted to discuss with you, which is really weird. I have had some invitations that are physical. So either some ailments that came and they went again, but really strict things I couldn't ignore. A conversation you uploaded, which was amazing. Was it Sarah? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah. The topic of beauty came in age and women and all of that. And that's really one of the invitations I think that still does get energy from my side, is the changing looks or the.
It's a big one, really, isn't
it? It is a big one. Yeah.
I think, because it is the way society is. It makes it quite an issue, really. And I think the conditioning right through life, you can see how it kind of builds. And but it's good you're aware of them, though. That's fantastic. You look very radiant. You don't look. It doesn't look like there's anything along those lines.
Yeah, that also happens when we talk. But
I think it's great that you're doing the book, because hopefully that'll lead to your financial freedom, which would be really great. And so that's but and it sounds as though you have a nice job anyway, really. And
I do.
So that's a really good thing.
Yeah, it did feel, because I'm really conscious of the thinking that's going on, and normally no problem is coming and going, and that's why I thought if there would be a negative thinking at the bottom of it, or as a then I would have spotted it. But this really felt like attacks from nowhere.
Yes.
And that is really new, that I don't know from the past, that I've never had that before.
Well, it can be, because the dualistic realm is kind of monitoring everything that's going on. Then whenever people become free, through realization, then that creates a kind of alert within the dualistic realm, and then invitations are sent to try to draw those people back in.
Yeah.
So it's you can see that in a way, but it's great that you're conscious of them, because you'll see them and then you just decline them.
Yeah. I remember in the sentence you said, like, is that all you've got? You said it in one of the and then that one really helps.
Good.
That helps in those moments. But I was just wondering if that is something you have heard before.
It's actually very common.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. I guess it's more common for the invitations to be activated following realization, and they can be quite, they can be quite intense occasionally, but the basis of them quite often is to do with old invitations. But in your case, because it's you're very clear of the old invitations, then the system would devise one or two new ones for you.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wanted to just check
Mm.
with that one because it's
Yeah, but
yeah,
they'll neutralize, and it's just having that sense of dealing with them from sovereignty, because they tend to work on the basis of inversion, so they're trying to make it appear as though they're powerful,
yeah,
when really it's only ever our own energy which is charging them. So
yeah,
once you see that, it becomes easier, really.
yeah, yeah. That one can be another invitation into blame. Okay, this is my own energy.
Yeah.
Apparently I accepted the invitation, and sometimes then I can't see where I accepted it. That must have been an
Yes. Well,
unconscious or
you could see how that blame could be projected, but yeah, it's seeing it really being very easy about it and just having a bit of fun with it, because
yeah,
you can see them, review them and see how they are inversions there, because they're always trying to convince us of the opposite of the freedom we've just gained. So if you're in a new space of freedom, then they're trying to divert your attention from that by
yeah.
presenting the opposite.
So true.
Mm.
And I think that's why it's also really great that we are having this topic for today as well, that we wanted to dive into it a little bit.
Yes.
Because it is not normal.
No.
I think I just said it in our first conversation, not knowing that you were even talking about things like that, because I'd never heard that before. But when I mentioned that it looks like there's so much unnecessary suffering in the world, and there's sometimes it seems to me to be some sort of satanic feeling or vibe to it.
Yes. It's so blatant,
You
really.
know, it is,
Isn't it?
because also these invitations, it's
Yeah.
if this is God's world, if this is great,
Yeah,
I can see how, yeah.
You just can't believe anybody could think
No,
it's God's world, could you really?
no, I can't. No.
It's
But
just,
then again, everybody says it is, except for the first time, you say something else. But indeed, almost everyone else, if asked, they say this is part of, how God shows him or herself, or
yeah.
this is part of the divine.
Yeah. Oh, it's a little school we're going to. It's a learning
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, they say, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah. And that also felt completely wrong. That was one of those things where I thought, okay, then I have to learn quite a lot more, because I'm not getting this.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like this is how it's meant to be. And that's why I was really happy that we were touching upon it a little bit. And if you don't mind, I did write down a few questions that I wouldn't forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm really just available to help you in any way I can, especially with your book.
Yeah, I think it is amazing. It's really, and it looks like it's going that way, because I think I'm quite done with this is what was holding me back for many years.
Yes.
That one I think I haven't read before I don't think I have seen it. And I collected everything I could remember, all the beliefs that either I had myself or that I read somewhere. I misunderstood also many times, because now in hindsight, I'm thinking, oh no, it was completely clear. But you can misread certain things.
Yes.
And then, looking at them from the dualistic, and then also from effortless being. And in the hope, if someone reads it, that the resonance will come up from within, like, oh yes, this is it. Yes. And that's pretty much covered. And then I was thinking, indeed, to go into the integration part, because I'm just in the middle of myself, of course, and just seeing what's happening there, what's going on. But also, I really wanted to dive into the Gnosticism, etc. There is something there for sure. This is like a missing link, I would say.
My feeling is that things are going to accelerate over the next 12 months or so. The timing of your book, I'm sure it'll be perfect.
Never thought about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels more like it's just happening. So that's nice. I'm really keen on seeing, okay, is it coming from effortless being? Is it just appearing, or is there some effort or some
You seem very
desire? Or
inspired, which is great. That's a really good sign, because inspiration is the source of motivation in a way, because it, it's coming from effortless being, but there is that, because the activity is required, it requires that inspiration. But I really sense that with you, so it's good to see it's coming from there.
Thank you. That is great. It felt more like it has to be done, and I don't even, I had never no images of even anyone buying it. That's not even.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of it because of what you're actually doing, because I don't think, there are lots of people who realize their true nature, but they haven't, only a very small percentage of them understand and can accept the severity of the way this world is.
Yeah. The majority of people has the cognitive dissonance going on.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the majority, really, still. I mean, non-duality already, that's just really far off. And I have to say, I was envying you a bit that you said you're almost only talking to people who are either self-realized or, quite, maybe acting or being in the effortless being.
Yes.
And in the surroundings here, there is nobody at all. Wow. There are certain people that are interested when they're in the Enneagram sessions. They want to know more. And then there's some opening, but it's always really all about painting and decorating the prison cell. There's almost no one who wants to go beyond it. It's always me, myself, my life. How does it get better? Leave all the other bullshit aside. I just want to know that piece, and that's kind of the furthest I have seen from people that are looking on the spiritual path. And everyone else, I don't mention it to anyone. I don't do it. I really follow your advice there. It wouldn't make sense.
No, you can sense it, can't you?
Yeah, you can. But that's why I couldn't see really how anything could accelerate. But you never know. I mean, these things do happen like this sometimes.
I feel that I think there is some very positive energies working behind the scenes. Inevitably, I think there will be a little bit of upheaval, and you can see it just starting a little. I don't think. I think there was a hope that it would have been smoother, but it could be a little bumpy ride. But I think there is definitely the possibility of some quite transformational information coming into the mainstream. So we'll see where it goes, though.
Let's see indeed. So one question I had, also looking, I saw the video about Gnosticism.
Yes.
And funnily enough, I've seen it a couple of times, and this week was really different from months ago after you sent it to me.
Oh,
it's like I was listening to a whole different presentation. And the only one I can say that to without sounding too crazy is you, probably. But all of a sudden I was hearing things that I really didn't hear clearly before.
Yes.
And the one thing I wanted to check with you, because you say sometimes to people that you have a conversation with, that they are like behind enemy lines.
Yes.
They were not, they don't belong to this realm. Is that the same as what he's talking about? Because he mentioned the 1% Gnostics or light workers and the not 1% counterfeit spirits, which are the psychopaths.
Yes.
But that means 98% are. It's not my coining. It's the empty vessels. Here you call them. But are they born on this planet? Are they different in that sense than the 1%, or is it just that the 1% is more connected? It's remembering things. That one I wasn't really clear.
It's really it isn't something. It isn't a sort of idea that I've just kind of adopted, or a belief I've adopted. It's something which it's just repeatedly appeared, and it's a theme which is in conversations. It's probably 90 or 95% of the conversations I have are with people where there are those aspects involved, where there's been intensity in childhood, and a feeling of not belonging, and then quite tough experiences, but never really conceding. And there's a sense of will, and it just keeps coming through. And so it's really due to the conversations I've had, because it comes up as a theme so many times, that it became apparent. And then the synchronicity, what was actually, I'd recognized that sequence before seeing the Martin Colburn presentation, but then because I used to use those very words, parachuting in behind enemy lines, and then he in that conversation. But really, what I sense is that most people I speak with, they are like volunteers, and most of them, this is definitely the case with you, realization was there prior to incarnating in the dualistic realm. So everything was already complete beforehand. It's just that a condition for coming in here is that we have a mind wipe, so that everything is just forgotten. But it almost feels as though it's like an activation process going on. But it seems as though my sense is that lots of people I have conversations with, this is definitely the case with Rommy, you're being sort of prepared in a way for what's coming, because I think there will be a transformation in the collective, and those who who came here as volunteers, it's at that point that they'll be called on in a more direct way. Because it also feels like that in the sequence of things, because I was having conversations since about 2008, 2009, but it's really accelerated in recent years. So you can see it's coming to a bit of a crescendo.
Yeah.
So but just, it probably isn't even worth speculating, but you can just sense there's something happening, definitely.
And just when you just said it, I felt it rising, like it's like a recognition.
Yeah. About what it's like, and the people where in Neo Advaita, where there is a genuine recognition, it's really that they begin to be able to access effortless being, so that the forms are arising equally and effortlessly, and they can see that, and they say it happens for no one. But there's no understanding of the dualistic realm. So the way the invitations work, personal experience, they kind of superimpose the absolute on the relative, and pretend that there's nothing you can do, in the personal realm of experience. But what's really apparent, and it's actually very simple, is everyone, it doesn't matter who, whether it's the 98% even, everyone is already the infinite being. So it's the starting point rather than a destination. And then you see that the difference between someone where there is realization and somebody who says they're not, it's just that they're still investing in the personal realm. So, and it's mainly to do with language, because in any moment there's simply there is simply the arising of the forms impersonally and awareness of the forms impersonally. But when we're using words like I, me, or mine, it temporarily creates a sense of personhood, the idea that we are a person. And so that's really all it is. And when people talk about the ego, it's just that the whole world is designed to get people to invest in individuality and in investing in the personal realm and in the dualistic realm. So most people, they're seeking in that sense, the way you describe it, that people, they're still looking, to decorate the cage.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I hadn't had your advice back then, when I was saying already, I'm afraid it may happen again, the feeling of getting it and then losing it again, I think this would have happened had I not known what I knew thanks to you. Because when the invitations came in the meantime,
Yes.
even if they felt overwhelming.
Mm.
There was just, then let's wait and see.
Yes.
And every single time, after 1 hour, 2 hours, or 5 minutes, it was gone.
Yeah.
And then the remembrance, if it wasn't possible during the invitation, it came quickly after.
Yes.
What was there throughout.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. So it doesn't really matter. But had I not known that, it would have been like a tsunami, I think, in some moments.
There would be, well, you can see how the whole experience continues, because people then, the invitations and the thoughts come in, so people feel as though they've lost it, and then they're back in seeking mode, and it's frantic.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's mad. It's madness.
So for the 1% in alignment with their infinite nature, they're the ones who have, it's like having the software installed to be able to function from effortless being. So
Okay.
that's really, putting it in a simple way. The 98% are able to experience the mental, emotional, and physical realms, but there's like a firewall where they can't get
Wow.
the dualistic realm into effortless. Well, that's not entirely true, because all creativity is coming from effortless being. So everyone who's creative in any way, it's coming from effortless being. It's just that there isn't the capability of seeing that as coming from impersonal being. They still think it's a personal quality or skill
Right.
or attribute.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's coming from their infinite nature. And then the 1% serving the dualistic system, it's really the intensity of polarization is just at the opposite end of the scale. So if you take things like Satanism, or sort of predatory aspect of the way beings function, like the demonic realm, really is, it's like a very highly charged, polarized version, where because it's actually to do with insatiable desire, because the only place there is really any satisfaction is in unity consciousness, where we're in alignment with our infinite nature. So in effortless being, there can be stillness, neutrality, silence, peace, and then leading to things like love, compassion, bliss. But because there's no capacity for any of that in the dualistic realm, it's insatiable. So no matter how much money people have, or whatever the experiences they're having, they never really satisfies. And so the wealthiest people, in a way, tend to, well, lots of them are just very unhappy because they've had all these things and there's no satisfaction there.
Yeah.
And it's because it's insatiable. It's because there's no possibility of getting satisfaction in the dualistic realm. So it just becomes really perverse. So you can see the way the world's become. No matter how much power they have, no matter how much money they have, no matter what experiences they are, it always just feels empty. So all they can do is have more and more intense versions of that, but none of it ever leads to happiness. But it is only like in a movie, in a way.
Yeah.
Because, and I think the giveaway, well, there are a couple of major giveaways. I think the one is, this is quite a simple way, is that if the dualistic system was really running the show, rather than those beings just being characters within the movie, there's no way that they would have allowed the release of the internet, because
No.
everyone was completely programmed by watching TV and everything. So there was, and so it's really obvious that they wouldn't have done that, because they could have just kept everybody in the dark. But it's because it's
Absolutely.
but the other giveaway, which I think is even more hilarious in a way, is if you take creation, or you look at time spans and things, people say, well, the Earth's 16 billion years old. Some people, or the universe is, that certain people say it's even older than that. But it just seems slightly humorous, the idea that we've just shown up when it gets interesting, you know, and just you know, we could have been there at any point in 16 billion
That's
years.
right.
But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
because it's a movie that
Yeah.
it has this point, you know, where it's sort of reaching the climax, and
It's a good point, actually.
because it's
Yeah,
possibilities of that, it's just so obvious, really.
that's true. Yeah. It's a good point.
It's all just entertainment on one level.
Mhm.
It's only that you know, we've elected to have the intensity of the experience, really, the because liberation, you know, there's liberation on an individual level, and then there's liberation on a global level, which is also coming, I feel. And that, you know, it's really the intensity has been to give us that contrast.
The movie and to see if we can change something there, right? It's
Yeah,
not that
definitely.
we say, hey, it doesn't matter. After all, everything is awareness. Is
Yeah, well,
that or
the
yeah,
solution the solution which seems to work is um when we align with effortless being, and we can function from there. So we're functioning much more from impersonal being. So the way we've been conditioned is to invest in personalization. So most people are heavily invested in personalization. It's to do with creating the self-image, projecting it into the world, you know, trying to achieve something to get recognition or fame or something. And you can see how there's a sort of mental concept of the image they wish to project, and it takes a lot of effort to maintain that, never entertaining any emotion which is to do with doubt in any
yeah,
way, because it's actually creating the fuel for that experience to come into your life.
yeah. So it's not positive thinking. It's not trying to think the opposite. It is recognizing it as an invitation
Yes.
and then
Yeah, because then
remaining.
yes, exactly, it's the frequency, it's the emotional frequency which surrounds those beliefs and those programs that we've adopted from people around
Yeah,
us. But it's fascinating when you recognize that it's the frequency that's creating it, because
yeah,
you can just you know, you can just, well, making neutrality the lowest level that you go to, you know, even with things like bereavement.
yeah,
I mean, you can slip through the net sometimes, but generally, when you know that remaining in neutrality, and also with things like bereavement, it's to do with having a sense of appreciation and love,
yeah.
really, rather than being, you know, invited into the grief,
Hmm.
which is what the dualistic realm wants us to do.
That's right. And tells us it should be happening because otherwise you don't care about
Yes. Yeah.
whoever you lost, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Well,
No.
you know, I think that also is an indication that, you know, you're not of this realm, really, because that's how it is for lots of people. It's, you know, it does come, you know, that because the programming tends to be more intense, and then they, you know, they're kind of drawn in at some point. The general thing is just knowing that everyone remains as the infinite timeless being, and
True.
so the character that's being played is only like a character. It isn't,
That's right.
you know, it can be believable based on, you know, the experiences and circumstances and things, but nobody ever becomes the
No,
human or the animal or anything, really.
that's right. How can one communicate from effortless being and stay there? Especially, and I'm not talking about people who are interested in this and want a conversation with me, but
Mhm.
just at work, somewhere else. I really feel when people are speaking to me, um, of course, it's from the dualistic world,
Mm.
um, and I don't consciously choose within the koshas to go
Mm.
lower. I'm just pulled down, and I lose a lot of energy.
Right, yes.
It's yeah. Do you have some advice on what to do there? It's really that one
Well,
is
again,
difficult.
it's really to make neutrality the sort of
Mm,
lowest that you will go to, because effortless being, you would say the foundation of effortless being is neutrality. So what you find is that if you decide to hold neutrality as the sort of foundation of the conversation, then that means that you're less likely to be invited in emotionally in any way. And what tends to happen is there's then a sense of unity, because it's like a field of consciousness. And when you're maintaining that sense of neutrality, and you're not engaging in a kind of dualistic or personal sense, then they're kind of held within that frequency.
Right.
So
Yeah.
because in the personal realm, there are lots of invitations into, into a kind of dualistic response to things, but it's just the simplicity of remaining as neutral as possible, and then that tends to settle the awareness down of the other person as well, and then it's like you've established the field of unity, and then they can experience that as well.
Yeah.
But neutrality is the key, really,
Neutrality.
because it just means that you're not going to be invited into any kind of emotional response.
Mm.
Also, the trusting of your own intuition is very important. And I know you do. I can sense that this is already fully functioning for you, but it's you'll get you'll get a very clear insight at the start of virtually every conversation as to what the scope is. Now, it may be because you speak about the enneagram, then that's one aspect. But if it's to do with pointing to people's true nature and helping them in that respect, you'll sense whether there's actually the possibility of that.
Yeah.
And so it's those sort of people that you give more time and attention to.
I was wondering, the koshas, are they somehow only there if there's a physical body, or are they always there, those 5 koshas? Is it just something that consciousness or awareness moves through? No, because the body is the last one, of course. I was just wondering, after death, how does that work?
Yeah, well, the way they come into being is everyone remains as attributeless being really throughout. But then you have these filters which come in. So the body of bliss is the first one. So initially there would have just been attributeless being, and then the option of infinite bliss as well. And then the causal realm appeared. So that's where all forms arise equally and effortlessly in the body of wisdom, or effortless being. The 3 dualistic ones, they're a bit of a contrick, because they there are the energetic implications, because the main reason for personalization is because when there's the sense of personalization, then we're actually prey to the dualistic realm, because it's only when we're identifying on a personal level with the invitations that they can be delivered, because while we're resting as effortless impersonal being, they can't register. So the main reason for those, so the mental realm appeared first, so that created the sense of individuality, and then the emotional level came to kind of supplement that, because it creates an even more intense version. So initially it would have just been thoughts. So it would have been thoughts, but without any emotional implications to those thoughts. But for most humans, the emotions are being triggered as a result of the thoughts. And then we took delivery of the physical body as well, which is an even more, it's more of an affliction, really. It's dressed up as being wonderful and divine, but when really it's a bit of a joke suit.
Right.
And so we've been kind of burdened with that. So firstly, there are the thoughts, which are then having a knock-on effect into the emotional, and then the emotions are affecting the physiology as well. So the way it works well in terms of death, so there can be, so at physical death, the four remain. So there would still be the etheric.
Okay.
So the etheric body is the same as the physical body, except it's in etheric form. So it's like a spirit. So
Okay.
when people see ghosts, they're seeing the etheric body.
Ah, okay.
And then the astral body is a more subtle version of that. And it can be, the bodies can be, various types, like with orbs, for instance, exist in the astral level. But the etheric level can be relinquished. Really, with realization, the option is, ultimately, what I feel is happening is the dualistic realm, which is the mental, emotional, and physical. They're all going to be reintegrated back into unity, so they're not going to be functioning in the energetic way that they are.
Because it does sound like even if there would be self-realization, if there's a rebirth happening, the wiping clean is just something that always happens, and there's just some fear of having to go through that all over again. And I know this is really coming from probably from the wrong sort of desire, or I can't even pronounce it correctly. But I can't do this. This is the feeling, like I can't do this.
You
I
don't
don't want to
come
be on the fucking
back.
search again.
No. Well, the truth is you're not. The true picture is that it is, well, ultimately it is only a movie. And even in terms of the role of Romy in the movie, there is the ideas of the consciousness being wiped clean. That's in the movie, that's kind of presented as something which is to do with the reincarnation cycle and the idea that we're in the reincarnation cycle. But they're only like little storylines within the movie anyway. There really is no reincarnation cycle, because there is, there is just the remaining as the infinite being. And that's definitely the case, because really, just continuing with the integration in terms of functioning as much as possible from impersonal being means that even within the movie there can't be reincarnation, because you can only reincarnate as a personal entity. So if there's no personalization, there's no one showing up to reincarnate.
No. And that's the same thing I think you were mentioning. If there after death, your spirit guide comes and says, "Yeah, you did quite well, but maybe you have to fix this and this."
Yeah, so you've got to go.
That is just the same thing as what's happening right here.
Yes.
It's a relative sort of appearance.
Yes. Yeah.
It's nothing more important than that, because often people think anything that happens after death somehow has more weight than this sort of human little meaning life that's going on.
Yes,
but it's not true.
No, it isn't. And also the establishing re-establishing the ability to function from one's impersonal nature, it means that you become the director of the movie rather than one of the characters in the movie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then it's a bit of a cheeky one, but living from the body of wisdom a lot of the time, it feels like the body of wisdom and the body of bliss, they are upgrades to awareness not being aware of itself. Although in deep sleep, there are no problems. It feels amazing. It is great. Mm-hmm. Thinking about it, which is what's happening after, talking to you or listening to you, then the mind is coming in and wants to put things in order. I do realize that. But then it does feel like, hey, why would awareness choose to be not aware of itself and rest forever in peace when it can also play in the body of bliss and the body of wisdom? If you know what I mean. Isn't that somehow, is that a weird thing to say, that seems like a better experience?
Well, because it's a movie, what we've opted for really is we've opted for the experience of contrast here. So the sort of rotation of the states of consciousness, so the rotation between the waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state, and then there are the sort of transcendental levels beyond there, like effortless being and the body of bliss. But we've kind of opted for the limited version so that we can have the contrast of kind of waking up to remember that none of the limitations which actually apply currently apply ultimately. It's just that they're aspects of the movie, you could say.
Yeah.
But the way it's described sort of in terms of the movie, which I think is, probably quite a clear description, is that consciousness functions on different levels. So plants, for instance, and inert objects, rocks and things, they're primarily in the equivalent of the sleep state of consciousness. And then animals supposedly are, it's a combination of the sleep state and the dream state. And then humans have the sleep state, the dream state, and the waking state. But then beyond the human level, it's like eternal waking. So there isn't, so it's only within the movie, within this experience of contrast and limitation, that there is the rotation of those experiences, because it's like with, if you take, for instance, the human realm, the things like the fleeting experiences. So people are trying to find things like love, and they find somebody that they really love, and then they move away to a different town, or they don't like them or something, or whatever. Or you find the love of your life and then they die of a heart attack, or so everything in the dualistic realm is based on that sense of impermanence. But that's only existing within this realm, because in terms of our true potential, everything is like permanence. So there is nothing hidden. There isn't anything which is fleeting. So time only exists within this realm. So there can be, outside, there can be an eternity of love, an eternity of bliss, no lack, nothing. It's just complete, so it's, and that's really, that's the option. But because there can also be, the desire for some kind of contrast, then we can have a brief pause from that, and have this kind of experience instead.
Yeah.
But it's realizing that consciousness is a field of infinite possibilities. So the reason that it's awareness aware of itself, which is just attributeless being, attributeless awareness, is because within that is the scope for there to be any experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
And we can exercise that consciously. It's just there are certain things within the current experience where we've kind of consented to certain limitations for the duration of the movie.
Yeah.
But that's all it is, really.
Yeah. Makes sense. Thanks. Yeah. 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 It's interesting, because on the one hand, there is no personal me, for sure. And on the other hand, we are also talking about accepting and declining invitations it sounds like having a choice of experiencing bliss or wisdom or the other thing. And I know it's both true, but it makes it really complicated to put in words.
Well, some people struggle with that because, especially if they've been exposed to Neo-Advaita, because they say, well, who is it that decides? I get all those sort of stock questions.
Yeah.
But it actually it's realizing that what we're experiencing is like a projection of consciousness. So in Indian philosophy, there's a branch which is called Sankhya, and what it explains is that at the source is Purusha, which means cosmic spirit. So that's like, you could say that is attributeless being, attributeless awareness. And then there are these various filters. So there's manas, which is mind. There's ahamkara, which is the individuating principle. And then there's a sort of element of there are these, they're called the tanmatras, the mahabhutas, and then they manifest into these different things like the subtle senses. So the subtle senses are the ones which are used in the dream state of consciousness, and then the gross senses are the ones used in the waking state. And then there are the subtle organs of action, which are the ones used in imagination or in the dream state. And then there are the gross organs of actions, which are the ones utilized in the waking state. But basically, it's just a projection of consciousness from Purusha, which is cosmic spirit or attributeless being, going through this sequence of filters. And there's a certain point which is called ahamkara, which is the individuating principle, which is that's really where language creates the individuating principle. Because in this moment, there is what's registering in this conversation, David speaking, or it's coming from, this focal point. But it's actually speaking to this open space of effortless being, which can also have the option of experiencing as Rommy. But it's realizing that there's this sequence of filters. In the current experience, most people aren't aware that it's a sequence of filters. So they think either we're an individual or either, or we're impersonal, or we have free will or we don't have free will. But it's just there are filters, and then the options depend on where you are along that line and which filters have been installed. So the last one is the five senses. So the five senses are hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell. The next level of manifestation is that they become the five essences, which are earth, air, fire, water, and space. So the whole of the physical creation shows up after, as a kind of a projection or extension of the physical senses, which shows you the whole thing is like a projection. It's like a projection of a beam of consciousness going through these various filters. And then what appears to be at the end currently is the physical manifestation. But that's just it's just that is it's just a projection, really, because it's only what appears to be the outer world is really only based on the senses. So we're all seeing our own unique universe, really, because everyone is Purusha, everyone is attributeless being projected through this sequence of filters. But with realization, firstly, there's the option to experience as impersonal being. So that's really when we can function prior to ahamkara, which is the individuating principle. And then from there, that's like the switchboard, because from impersonal being, you can then reconfigure the functioning in the manifest level. So you can then adjust the functioning of the mental realm, the emotional realm, and the physical realm, because you're able to do that. I mean, in a simple way, from effortless being, the mind can be turned off. because the invitations can't be taken delivery of by impersonal being. They can only be taken delivery of if we're using words like I, me, or mine, or thoughts which include I, me, or mine. And then once the mental realm comes under our direct control or influence, then the emotions can be turned off. And then when the emotions are turned off, then the physical body can be regulated as well. So it's seeing that it's it's really that consciousness can, it's like a filter. It's like a projection of pure light, you could say, the pure light of infinite potential shining through these various filters, and depending where on that line one is experiencing, then you have those specific experiences. So but in ignorance, people are experiencing that, and they're just seeing themselves at the end of the line. They're seeing themselves as the physical body with these things called, the mind and senses. But really, when we establish functioning from impersonal being, then the option to actually utilize those areas in a conscious way becomes available. So you can, well, as it is with you and I, we can switch on and off impersonal or personal modes of experience.
Yeah, this is revolutionary, and nobody talks about it.
No.
The fact that you have filters. This is the real seekers. There are so many. If only they knew.
Yeah.
Because this is crucial.
Yeah.
This is really the difference between feeling, self-realized.
Yes.
Or not self-realized. Making it a huge, black and white either or sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, quite a good reference point. What I would suggest, Rommy, because the clearest reference to this I found is in the translation and commentary of the Bhagavad Gita by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who did, he was the founder of the TM movement. But at the back of the commentary, he mentions the different kinds of philosophy, Indian philosophy. So he explains Sankhya there. So he explains that exact sequence. So you can see the reference where it goes from Purusha through all the filters. He mentioned, I've probably missed a few and got them in the right order, in the wrong order. But he explains the exact sequence in the process of manifestation. But it's really that we all remain as this infinite field of consciousness, which is kind of projecting through these filters. So it's like the white light of infinite potential going through these various filters, and then by the time it gets to the current end, it's the physical realm, earth, air, fire, water, and space. But then beyond that is transhuman the transhumanist world.
That's right. Yeah. So then you yourself don't see the world in you all the time, do you?
Do you mean
like depends maybe from where you're looking within the filter where you are?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because lots of spiritual teachings, like with Neo-Advaita, for instance, they say, oh, well, the me disappears, never to return. Well, in terms of effortless being, you could say the me disappears, never to return, in that you never believe in the me again. Because you know that you are the infinite impersonal being. So the me ultimately has disappeared because you're not maintaining it as though it's real and as though it's primary, but it's still accessible, so you can still have that experience. So to me, it's really having the capability of functioning consciously from any of those filters. So so it's like the full-on aspect of any of them. So in the physical realm, or in certain situations, I could be aggressive, or I could appear to be angry, or I could appear to be anything, because there aren't any limits, and none of it is a reflection of how evolved we are spiritually. Well, actually, having the flexibility to be able to assume any of those roles is the ultimate testimony um, to liberation, because we're liberated from the conditions and restrictions of any of those filters, because we can utilize them and operate through them in any way we wish to.
Yeah. And you can sense if it's right or wrong, so to say. If there's contraction, it's not the right thing. But any other thing, like even if there would be anger or irritation, I feel the difference.
Yes.
Like if it's just this spontaneous thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's the liberation. That's really the freedom to to express it, let it happen. So it was something that there was some concern or wondering about. Whereas the part of the self-realization, truly the effortless being, there is no question there, and not only the I is dead or whatever, but that it truly wasn't there ever.
Yeah,
it hasn't been there before, and that seeing that, and then how it's experienced in this body mind is, it's this playful. Now this is happening. Now that's happening. Now this body is coming, and there's no problem, and it's just really quite entertaining, and it's nice.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I really don't have, unless I would maybe call it sort of a meditation. When I don't consciously go to the body of wisdom, but I'm just functioning in this world, I truly don't see the car as appearing within my consciousness. I do see that when I'm lying in bed and I'm hearing noises and sounds, it's completely clear wherever the sounds are. If it's the cat purring here or the car there, it's arising within me. Then I clearly feel it.
Yes,
but I don't have it in daily life.
No.
I can't see my husband or colleague or whatever and then thinking, hey, how interesting this is arising in. There's no expansion feeling.
No, well, really, that's part of the diversity in a way, and there can be kind of refinement and development, so that there's the ability to function from impersonal being more, even when you're engaged in conversations with people. But that's something which that develops really.
Yeah.
But all those options remain, because sometimes it's the dualistic realm is more it's more entertaining if we're assuming those roles, but it's knowing that they are only roles. It's a bit like, I use, well, it's a bit of an old chestnut really, but it's the distinction between a proficient actor who can assume any role, and he can portray the character in the most outrageous way. So, the character in the movie or the play could be really angry or grumpy or violent or aggressive or anything. And it's just having the resources to play any of those roles. And then you just turn them off immediately. That's what I find, there's a lot of fun in that, because there's no residue. Whereas if people are heavily invested in the personal realm, it tends to be that there's a residue. So if there's a confrontational situation, or if there's something, where somebody upsets them, then it can go on for a long time. It can go on for several hours or days. Whereas when you realize it's only like a little play, you can do whatever it is, and then it's just over when it's over. It's like the actor takes his costume off and he goes home and has a glass of beer or something.
That's right. Yeah. But also realizing, indeed, you shape your experience, you shape reality, because the moment it's believed to be the actor, one is also training the other people in the dream or in the relative world, to expect something from you and to think in a certain way, or to expect something that sometimes then they're surprised if it doesn't come anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting. So are there any books or anything else you could maybe recommend on Gnosticism? Because I couldn't find anything really, YouTube or Google or whatever. It's all a bit, it's not really what you were talking about or what
No, that's the
Martin
problem.
Coben was talking. It's really
it's like with Gnosticism and the koshers, if you do a search, on Google, then you
Yeah,
come up with an inverted version of it
exactly.
usually.
It's reversed. Yes, exactly. I thought that wasn't the right thing. Yes.
No. Well,
So,
my take on that is that it's actually pointing us back to sovereignty, because lots of the conditioning we've had is that we have to look out into the world to gain knowledge. So we have to listen to other teachers or read books or watch videos. I mean, I say this completely honestly. Since realization in 2005, I haven't read any books. I've watched one or two like little clips of videos and
mm,
things, mainly for entertainment, nothing where I feel as though I'm trying to learn anything.
no. Okay. Yeah.
But it's just having that sense that because you know that you're, the totality of existence, then whatever you need will just come to you. And that's how it's been really. I think that's how things have emerged in terms of it's a kind of integration between realization and the ability to function from impersonal being, but also to be able to operate consciously and enjoyably within the dualistic realm, and to have access to all of those filters and modes of experience, and to be able to utilize them consciously. But it's because the key to that really is sovereignty, because if we are still looking into the world, the idea that we need to look elsewhere rather than within,
Mm,
then because you're the infinite being, you're shining the light of your infinite potential into that concept to make it seem as though you need to look elsewhere, when really everything is capable of just arising within you, and just having
yeah.
that sense of openness and knowing it'll come to you.
I'm hearing that. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. 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 Very clear. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, in a way, it's
Yeah.
really obvious, isn't it? But it's because we've been conditioned into things like research and
Hmm.
studying and all of these, remembering and all of these things, when really you don't need to remember anything, because whatever you need, it just comes to you when you need it, and you just say it when you need it, and you don't need to question anything.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. But there's also no real thing that you and I need to do in order to help, fight this matrix or whatever. So whatever comes, comes, and then we respond.
Yeah, and it's
That's
really just
basically it.
really, it's just, to me, it's just love and entertainment, really, and unity.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
having, what's emerged for me really is the ability to experience more and more in a sense of unity, because having conversations with people like you, there's that option. The subject object mode isn't operational. It's just, it's a field of awareness within which it's just like a playful
Yeah.
awareness within which these waves are arising. And so, yeah, that's the difference, really.
Yeah. But I just start coming like, I wish this was always the case. Just this, if this is what life could be like, it would be really great. But I know this is another invitation in
Well, in one way,
probably.
the thing with invitations is there are two aspects to them. So the one is it's trying to upset you and limit you, but the other
Hmm.
one is that it's giving you an insight into possibilities that are available. So that's definitely something which can continue to emerge, really.
Yeah. But then it would be seeing if self-realized people appear somehow more in the surroundings where one is, because yeah,
Yeah, you're not
it's
having that.
just not. No, 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 no,
No, I think what
no.
you'll probably find that you'll have more conversations with people contacting you,
Hmm.
and you can install a few filters there yourself, where you filter out the
Hmm.
ones that are going to be a bit of a nuisance,
Yeah.
and let
Yeah.
let the ones through where you can completely trust your intuition, because you'll know just by reading an email. Sometimes people send me like it's one line, and you just read them. So you know exactly what their motivation is, where they are, what their intentions are, the purity of their intentions. Everything is there. I mean,
it is.
they
Yeah,
say a person only needs to speak 2 words to be able to know where they're coming from. And but that's another aspect, really. You see that it's constantly evolving, because from infinite intelligence, you see that the potential that's being presented to you is constantly evolving, because the infinite being has infinite potential to do that. So it's like the script of the movie is constantly being refined, and there's more depth to it, and there's more there's more scope for the most amazing experiences, way beyond anything you can imagine, because it constantly refines. And the only way that the only thing that needs to be done in that respect is just being totally true to yourself and what feels right, and just being totally authentic, not feel as though you have to play any games. And it's just miraculous the way it happens.
True. Yeah. Well, thank you so very much again.
Well, it's great to spend
Yeah.
time with you, Romy, and I love your project, and you're exactly the person to do it. So you're not that it's the person doing it, but it's just the inspiration's there and the
It
clarity.
is.